Here we are back once again for the RotoWire Fantasy Football live stream. I'm Alan Zaslowski here with RotoWire writer Jim Coventry. What's up, Jim?
Oh, things are well. We're in the teeth of preseason. No games yet, but we're getting there, Alan. Soon.
There's a game tonight.
There is the one tonight. Hall of Fame is tonight?
Yeah, that's right. So we actually start
know that.
Cowboys. Yeah, Cowboys and Steelers tonight, which is Thursday. So we got the band back together. It's always fun to be hanging out with you guys. And what the purpose of this live stream, we're going to come to you as often as we can, is there's always these forks in the road, Jim. When I'm on the clock and there's two players I like and I really cannot decide, and you've done a great job. You do an article on RotoWire.com called ADP Battles, and that's really just a metaphor for like, who are we going to pick at their ADP? What else can you tell us that about ADP Battles before we dive into this week's episode?
You know, ultimately, it is what you said, but I think what fantasy managers really need at their disposal is not just the upside case for every player, but they need the downside case as well. Every player has that, and this is obvious, but not many people think about it. The further down the draft board we go, the more warts the players have, hence the lower ADP. But that's the point. When you're armed with upside and downside, you can make the best decision for the safest play, the upside play, anything that you want, we can frame it here. Now, these ADP battles we also do when I'm on the SiriusXM show, which is typically now Saturdays and Sundays. And on the SXM app, if you look up my name, you should be able to find some of those. I did those with Mario Puig. So absolutely, Alan, that's what we have rolling.
Yeah, no, and you make a good point because I don't people get really let's say obsessed with upside. Like, what's the maximum outcome, the 80th percentile? And when I'm in my regular 12-person league, a meaningful league for me, even if it's high stakes, medium stakes, but when it's an important league for you, sometimes having building bricks, just guys that you know you could start every week without even thinking about it. And we're going to talk about the ultimate building brick, two players today versus a high upside guy. We're going to talk about T. Higgins versus Adam Thielen. Both players who I want. Currently, they're going back-to-back. What is their current ADP in most drafts?
So right now, Adam Thielen, we have him going as wide receiver 23 at pick 53. T. Higgins is wide receiver 24 at pick 56. And the reason we give you numbers is because we don't want to say what round they go in, because you may be in a 10-team, a 12-team, or a 14-team league. By telling you the numbers, that works well for any league configuration.
I mean, all right, we'll get into it. But have you had this actual choice when on the clock? Have you been sitting there in, again, I know you don't want to give rounds, but in a typical 12-team league, you're in round 5. You're in round, right after round 4, and you have both of those guys staring you in the face. Have you had this actual choice to make in your drafts?
So the answer is yes and no, because I weigh all these pros and cons out when I do my prep throughout the winter and early spring. So I already plan upside and downside. So my draft board is constructed to move players to spots on my draft board where I actually would have them. So yes, I've been in drafts where all three of these players have been available. However, when I was picking, I already predefined those moves, so it wasn't an on-the-clock struggle because I dealt with the material I'm giving you in these shows far in advance, and I already had my weighed those out and made my evaluations based on this information.
Yeah, and the other player that I want to throw in the mix too is Diontae Johnson, because he's wide receiver 25, ADP 58. So we're talking about three players, all can have an argument to make the pick when you're on the clock, and for very different reasons. Let's start with Adam Thielen, okay? The Minnesota Vikings receiver, last season 14 touchdowns. The easy analysis is to yell regression, but it's regression to what? I still think Adam Thielen is a rock-solid pick. Nobody seems to want him. Only players that are, let's call it agnostic and don't need upside. So give me the case for Adam Thielen first, then we'll move on to the other players.
So the case for him is Minnesota ideally runs two tight end sets, meaning they don't put a third wide receiver on the field. So basically, wide receiver targets, they're either going to Justin Jefferson or they're going to Adam Thielen. Thielen saw 108 targets last year in 15 games. Now, overall, aside from the touchdowns, the production wasn't great. 74 catches for 925 yards, but nonetheless, target volume is very, very important. So I think the biggest upside there is that, and also Yeah, I get it. As you said, the career high touchdown mark last year and the best 2 seasons of his career before then, total just 15. But nonetheless, he's an excellent route runner. And even though he's small at 6'2", 200, he knows how to manipulate his body to create space in the end zone. And Kirk Cousins absolutely has chemistry with him in the red area. So I think those are the biggest cases for upside for Adam Thielen.
So you said Adam Thielen is small at 6'2", 200 pounds. Now you say it's more slight, but it's funny. Just for observationally, he doesn't look like he's a slight receiver. Like we're going to talk about T. Higgins and Diontae Johnson shortly, but Adam Thielen, I don't know. He seems to be a little bit more of a bully in there. How do you square those two things from your eye? Does he look like he's getting outmatched by corners?
Yeah, you know what? It's a good question. When I meant small, I meant like for a red zone target. In the red zone, we like those tight ends, 6'4", 260. We like those alpha outside receivers, the 6'4", 215 clasher types. So for the red zone, I think Thielen is a smaller guy. Because remember, the concentration of bodies in the red zone, it gets very crazy. When you're inside the 10-yard line, everybody's packed there. And yet Thielen has found a way to survive and thrive in a place where typically we don't see a lot of 6'2", 200 receivers prosper in that part of the field.
So briefly, what is it about him? Is he just is he an elite route runner? Is he how does he get open in the red zone and score so many touchdowns?
Yes, so it's a combination of the route running, but he also understands the nuances of setting up defenders. Almost like a basketball player, there are times when you can kind of box out. You get your body in front of the defender, you jump him to the spot, and therefore you give your quarterback an open sight line, and yet he understands how to keep the defender from making a play on him. And when you go through practice reps, these are the types of things that establish you with your quarterback as a reliable option. So yes, that body manipulation, setting up the defenders, and the route running. The route running is clearly a huge part of the success of Adam Thielen.
So another case for Adam Thielen, then we'll move on to our next player, which is going to be T. Higgins, is that there aren't many pass options there. It's a narrow tree, as we've heard, Chris Liss and Scott Pianowski talk about all the time, that term. I love it, that they throw to Justin Jefferson, they throw to Adam Thielen, and last year there wasn't really a tight end of note. We've heard the buzz on Irv Smith, so maybe that could eat into Thielen's touchdown. So, all right, let's move on. So that's an interesting case. Any concerns just for 2021 about his age 30?
Yeah, we always want to do the downside, so I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah. So the downside on Adam Thielen is, yes, he's going to turn 31 before week 1. And that's important because we watch this game and we see wide receivers, running backs, of course, they erode as age goes on. And for a non-elite receiver, like you got a small room Hall of Famer, he might be playing at a high level. Larry Fitzgerald at 34, 35, pretty high level. But players like Adam Thielen, when they get into their 30s, we don't have a lot of track record for players maintaining a high level of play. And one of the things that tips toward that is that he's missed 6 games over the last 2 seasons. Getting nicked up is part of aging, and recovering from that as quickly is problematic. So part of the downside is the age is going to become a factor at some point. The injury recovery will become an issue as well. And one more thing, if the Vikings defense makes a substantial jump this year, and Zimmer got them moving in the second half last year, they added some players as well, and they play some zones. So even like Patrick Peterson at corner, who we think is a little washed, in a zone system with Zimmer mixing coverages up, if they're playing with leads, they're going to run the ball a ton, and Cousins may throw as few as 400 times if they become a top 10 defense. So that's also a little bit of potential downside.
You're watching RotoWire ADP battles. He's Jim Coventry. I'm Alan Seslowsky. If you want to go check out our draft rankings for free right now, you could do so for 10 days. Just go to rotowire.com/try. You see the call to action right on the bottom there. You can go with no credit card. Just go in and check out all of the tools. Check out the cheat sheets. Okay, let's move on. Next player we're going to talk about is T. Higgins. And also, just one last reminder that when you go and sign up for that trial, you could see Jim Coventry's ADP battles column on there, and he breaks down all a bunch of players, and it's really useful when you're on the clock and you don't know who to pick. So he makes the bull and the bear case for all these players. T. Higgins, what an exciting player! I mean, he was picked in the second round of the real NFL draft last year. Performed like a first rounder. It's crazy to think that the Green Bay Packers could have drafted him at any point in the first round. I would have loved to see him there. Start with the pro case. Everyone's excited about T. Higgins. What? Give me the whole upside case for T. Higgins at his ADP.
So it was a weird season because Joe Burrow got hurt in week 11. And so fantasy managers, I don't think know what T. Higgins is, because how many people are watching Bengals games, right? Well, in weeks 6 to 10, after Burrow kind of navigated the beginning of the season, 4-game stretch in there, he averages 6 receptions, 95 yards, and a half a touchdown. Now, small sample size, but it was a quarterback coming into his own. It was Higgins coming into his own in the COVID year where there was no training camp. Now, I don't think he's going to play at a 1,600-yard pace like that. However, we saw T. Higgins play as an emerging superstar. Now, after Burrow got hurt, the quarterback play was atrocious. Yet, in weeks 12 to 16, Higgins was the wide receiver 30 with pretty much no quarterback. Now, that is pretty impressive. So I think Higgins is flying under the radar, and his upside is he's arrived. And I know Jamar Chase got drafted by the Bengals, and I know he has a college history with Joe Burrow. But T. Higgins has an NFL chemistry with him. He's already proven he can beat NFL defenses. I think that's where our upside is on a team that's going to have a bad defense. They're going to have to throw a ton, and Higgins has already shown he can be the guy.
And he just looks the part. When you talked about people not watching too much Cincinnati, sure, on the standalone, but anyone watching this live stream is addicted to fantasy football, and they've seen T. Higgins on the highlight reels and the Red Zone channel, and he just pops off the screen, doesn't he? You're like, oh, that's their star rookie right there. You could just tell, and he has the size, the athleticism to do all those things. I err on the side a little bit if I'm a little squeamish about T. Higgins. I want him, but there's always someone I want a little bit more. What's the downside for T. Higgins?
So the downside is, look, Zach Taylor comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree, but he did not bring the best of McVay. He stays in that 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers, a bit too much for a coach that does not have an acceptable offensive line. So first of all, Burrow is under immense pressure when they play a good defense. Also, Taylor does not use enough play action and pre-snap motion to give both his offensive line and his quarterback reads on what the defense is about to do. So the coaching actually hurts their potential for production. And the more teams blitz Cincy this year, the problem could be that Burrow is under so much pressure, it's hard to get downfield throws to Higgins. Sure, the short stuff will be there, but he showed he can make big plays. 6'4", 215, and he really, like you said, Alan, looks the part, and he can be an alpha. But with too much pressure, that's problematic. And also, we can't completely dismiss the Jamar Chase is there. I mentioned earlier, Higgins proved at the NFL level, but we don't know how much that instant chemistry with Chase and Burrow is going to be. And it's possible that he carves into Higgins' workload too much on differing times. Like maybe some weeks it'll be too much Chase, not enough Higgins. So I think that's the downside. We don't really know how much Chase is going to impact Higgins.
See, I see T. Higgins as more of a floor play this year rather than an upside play. So when you had him last year, you say, oh, this guy could just be the next star wide receiver. I mean, you outlined that perfectly. But I think if you're drafting T. Higgins, you have to understand those 25-point games, you might get a couple, but expect a lot of 14ers, 14, and someone you can plug in, and that's where you have to decide in the 4th round, in the 5th round of your draft, maybe if it falls to the 6th in a 10-team league, like, am I willing to live with it? Just have to manage your expectations. I think you highlighted it really good. Let me ask you a question. I've been vocal about Joe Burrow and my skepticism about him. He tore his ACL and his MCL in week 11. We're seeing players that are having trouble get back to full strength. We talked to the Saquon Barkley who tore his ACL earlier. Why do you think someone that really ripped apart their knee in week 11, the first month of the season, is he going to even be himself? Does that affect the receivers?
I think positionally it makes a difference. If you're a running back, look, you are making hard cuts against your body weight left, instant explosion to the right. The quarterback position's a lot different. We see offensive tackles come back quickly. We see quarterbacks come back quickly. Burrow is a mobile guy, but he's not your, obviously, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen types. He doesn't have to run to be successful. So I think Joe Burrow could play the part of a pocket quarterback, but when he runs again, it's going to be more, he's a big body, almost as big as Josh Allen, close, not close, maybe not that big, but he can run in a straight line. And if he has to do it, get a few yards and slide, he can. So I think the mobility is not going to be a problem because it's not those harsh cuts against all your body weight. So I think the quarterback comes out of this better than the running back, coming from an ACL and an MCL tear.
And we did, just backtracking a minute, no worries. When we were talking about Adam Thielen, no worries about the quarterback situation there, right? For as far as fantasy, Kirk Cousins is rock solid as they come to support someone like Thielen, right?
Kirk Cousins is actually perfect for Adam Thielen. He's he could throw with timing and anticipation. He is really your pocket passer. He's very accurate. Yeah. And the line there is not bad. Their line have been criticized for years. That line is acceptable now. And so overall, I think he's a perfect quarterback for what Adam Thielen is. Kirk Cousins isn't looking like Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is always looking for the 50-yard play. Well, Cousins is looking for what's open. And so I think that's a perfect blend of quarterback and receiver.
Yeah, I mean, when you're drafting a wide receiver, you're basically drafting the offense and the quarterback with him. I know that's a common theme and narrative of fantasy football, but it really should be underlined, especially when you're having to make a fourth-round pick. And, you and I have maybe just a slight difference of opinion on Joe Burrow's status. So for me, this decision would be easier based on my opinion of Joe Burrow for the first month of the season. Now we're going to get into a Diontae Johnson, and this brings in all the elements of what we're talking about. Someone who performed last year, whose situation may be different this year for a number of reasons, right? Diontae Johnson's current ADP is wide receiver 25, 58 overall. So, again, right in that same mix. Start with the case, make the case for Diontae Johnson. We'll make it against, and then we'll come back and have a debate on him.
The case for Diontae Johnson is he saw 144 targets in 15 games last year. The Steelers' passing attack is get the ball out of Ben's hands as quickly as humanly possible, and Diontae Johnson has shown ability to get open very early in a route. So basically, his upside is the fact that if you're seeing that many targets, and think about this, he didn't produce on those 144 targets. 88 catches for 923 yards. That's terrible for 144 targets, but he saw 144 targets. So that's his upside. He's a floor play to me. And he saw double-digit targets in 10 games last year, and he had at least 8 receptions in 7 games. So
Jim,
PPR.
I just want to underline something you just said there.
Yes.
Go to the software. If you're listening to this, go to the software that you play fantasy football on. I want you to open up Diontae Johnson's player card and just take a look at the beautiful thing Jim just said. All those double-digit target numbers. You just go down, put your finger down the middle of his player card, and look at the targets. It's double digits the whole way down. I mean, it's a thing of beauty to look at that.
Oh, yes. In fantasy managers, we don't get target shares like that except for the elite receivers. And here's a guy you're getting in the, wide receiver 26 or so. Yes. So to get that kind of target share that late, that's the upside.
I just got a question before we go to if this is part of your downside case, then just wave me off. But your colleague that you do your SiriusXM show with, Mario Puig, he made an interesting point. Is the possible passing? So they have Najee Harris, and he's going to catch some footballs this year, and he's going to catch those short footballs, and they're going to hand off the ball more because they have a competent running back. Do you think that could affect Diontae Johnson's target share? Are you going to cover that in your downside?
So what I will point out is running back and tight end targets are correlated. Wide receiver routes are completely different types of plays.
That's a good point.
And so what I'm going to build in here, this is an important discussion, and this will actually play on the Najee Harris thing as well. Look, the Steelers had the 3rd worst run blocking in the NFL last season. James Conner is not a bad back. He had nowhere to go. He actually outperformed the baseline significantly of the blocking he had. The Steelers, after that poor performance, they lost their 3 best linemen in the offseason. replaced him with 2 mid-round draft picks. This probably is the worst run blocking line in the league. Najee Harris will have nowhere to run, and part of my downside will come in this a minute with Diontae Johnson. Look, if I'm an opposing defense and the book is out, Ben's arm is toast. It's not coming back at 39 years old. Some people are saying, oh, he had arm surgery, elbow surgery. Oh, he'll be back 2 years. No, he's 39. He never took care of himself. That arm at 39 doesn't come back for anybody, especially not Ben Roethlisberger. So defenses are going to do 2 things, in my opinion. They are going to overstack the box, and they're going to jam the receivers at the line, and they're going to dare Ben to beat them because he can't. And Najee Harris is going to get hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. My guess is on most of his carries. He is going to be beat up this year. He's lucky he's young, but I don't see a lot here in the patterns out of the backfield for Harris with all those bodies in the box. How do you get him out in the pattern? I just don't see it. So back to Diontae Johnson. The downside is this: if defenses are successful at jamming the receivers, those quick openings that Johnson got on the quick hitch passes, those can be taken away. And if Ben's arm is completely toast and they basically, guard Johnson to the inside hip where the throw's coming, and if Ben can't make these throws, that's a problem. So Diontae Johnson was benched twice during games last year because of concentration lapses and drops. Now, in-game benchings, those were a couple of games he didn't have the 10 targets. That was why he got benched. So the coaching staff is unhappy with some of the things he's doing.
Okay, so it's decision time. You're on the clock, Jim. I want you to, so people watching this, they just want the answers to the test. You taught them, you showed them how you study for the test and how you analyze and how you break this down. That's why ADP battles. That's why this series of videos and articles you do on RotoWire is awesome, because you break it down. But I want to be told. I'm on the clock. I need a second wide receiver. All 3 of these guys there, rank them for me how you would draft them in your draft. That's the most important draft for you. We're going to talk about Adam Thielen, T. Higgins, and Diontae Johnson. Who would be your first choice of those 3?
And here's the funny thing, and this is how I do it in the article. I'm going to explain how you take each one. The upside receiver of the 3 is T. Higgins. He, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling. So if you want the ceiling play, you go with Higgins. If you want the player with the best balance, maybe not the ceiling of Higgins, but the guy with a floor and a ceiling combo, Adam Thielen is the player there. Diontae Johnson is a clear third to me, unless you're in a PPR league and you feel that floor is the only thing that matters. If you want a player that is going to get you the double-digit points every week, not a lot of flashy weeks. So it's not a cop-out, but it's how I rank them based on what I need. Now, if you ask me straight up to rank them 1, 2, and 3, it's Higgins, Thielen, and Johnson.
You heard it right here. Okay, everybody. We'll be back again each week with an ADP battle. And I was going to tell you, if you like this video, if you got some value from this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. That's how you can pay us back. And that's how you'll get notifications every time we put up new video content. And if you want to see the RotoWire rankings for free, go to rotowire.com/try. Just put in your email, and you'll be able to see all the tools, everything we have. Anything else Jim, that you want to talk about before we go?
So remember, if you do have Sirius XM, tune in. I'm on Saturdays and Sundays. Look forward to interacting with people that way, but definitely watch our show there. And during the week, it's Jeff Erickson and Chris Liss most of the time, Mario Puig on Fridays with Joe Bartle. But definitely the Sirius XM show is one to definitely listen to when you have the opportunity. And if you don't have a Sirius subscription, we'll be back every week at 11 Eastern, up until the season at least, doing another ADP battle. Okay? Until next time, he's Jim Coventry. At Jim Coventry NFL is your Twitter?
Yes.
And I am at Alan Seslowski. We'll see you next week.